we got the look at. So now that make this regulation very important, so they go talk in a very clear way how the magistrate and the judge for look at the question of bail.
Good morning and welcome to the Good Morning Sierra Leone. Thank God it's Friday. Today is the 20th day in September 2019. Well, we're back and we are leaving you for this week. Yes. Shall we right back
for the next 2 weeks.
Yes. But, and the program today, our white quote is from an American investor and author, Farah Gray. It says, build your own dream or someone else will hire you to build theirs.
I love that quote, and that is one of my favorite.
We are presenters,
and I am Alice Miami Thompson. And in this edition of the program, Mass Failure at Sierra Leone Law School. What is responsible? We shall find out. Youth Association of Sierra Leone poised to engage in activities to promote sustainable development and the United Nations. And Albert Academy set to celebrate 115th anniversary. Well, 115th anniversary. Well, these issues and more are lined up in the next 1 hour 30 minutes. We're here to be your presenters, and you can also participate by sending your views to the number 077-230-440.
Through text messages, and you can be part of the program. Join us for our conversation. You can also follow us live on our Facebook page, SLBC TV Channel 31, or on YouTube at SLBC TV live stream.
Yeah.
You can also leave your comment there. Let's keep the conversation flowing. Whatever you feel strong about, or you have any issue to raise.
Just say it.
But
thank you so much.
You know, I took your advice yesterday.
Okay.
I
did the ginger thing?
The ginger.
Okay.
So I had to heat it up to 360 degrees.
Okay. You have the thermometer for that?
Yes,
okay.
I took it this morning.
Okay.
But in that case, we don't know what's coming up in the health tips. Let's find out.
So let's find out.
Change, the big M, hot flashes, calores, whatever you want to call it, there's no mistaking it when menopause arrives. If you look in the dictionary, menopause is defined as the stage at which a woman stops ovulating. This can cause many symptoms, including hot flashes, night sweats, and loss of libido. While the average age of menopause is 51, many women start experiencing symptoms 5 to 10 years prior to that in a stage called perimenopause. You may be nodding your head right now thinking, aha, that explains some things. Let's talk about ways to treat these symptoms naturally. The first place to look for natural remedies, of course, is food. During hormonal changes, your body needs a steady supply of balanced meals that include fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and calcium. Now, let's talk about herbal remedies, and I'll speak plainly here. Plant estrogens, such as black cohosh, red clover, and soy, are really confusing to the research community. In some studies, they show benefit. In others, not so much. What we do know is that women with breast and gynecologic cancers should not take these supplements. In these studies, there's not much evidence that other herbal remedies such as dong quai, evening primrose oil, vitamin E, ginseng, or kava kava will help with your symptoms. They may help, but I wouldn't look to them as a cure-all. What is important is that you talk to your doctor before starting these supplements to make sure they won't interfere with any other health problems you may have. Now that's a lot about what we don't know. What we do know is that a stress reduction program may be the single biggest way to reduce the symptoms of menopause. Why? Because adrenaline, which is produced when your body is under stress, makes the symptoms of menopause worse, including hot flashes and mood swings. So it's very important to relax deeply and effectively every day, which will require a little pre-planning. Enroll in a scheduled yoga class, or maybe a mindfulness meditation group. Or you could try acupuncture or hypnotherapy. When you're at work or in your car, try paced breathing. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. In the end, if you relax and pamper yourself, you can cope with the hormonal changes, you'll feel much better, and your relationships with everyone around you will be better too.
Welcome back, and the program you're watching is Good Morning Sierra Leone, and I hope you have learned something from the health.
Yes, just as I did from the health tip yesterday. So I had to boil the ginger, even though it had some amount of sugar. Boil it to 360 degrees.
It feels like tea.
Yes, and I poured smaller amount of honey into it and lime. So it tastes very good, healthy, and very refreshing for the intestine.
Yeah. Well, for our first story this morning, the Youth Association of Sierra Leone is an organization comprised of national representative of young people working on sustainable development activities, as well as engaging in activities that promote the United Nations. The association, among others, is to serve as a Sierra Leone youth movement for stronger, supportive, and more effective United Nations, and strive for respect for human rights and fundamental freedom of youth in Sierra Leone and the world.
The founder and director general of the association, Junisa Kallon, is with us in the studios to deliberate on pertinent issues relating to the association, as well as its intention to be nominated for the Commonwealth Youth Awards 2020. Good morning and welcome to the Good Morning Sierra Leone, Junisa.
Good morning, thank you, very welcome.
Maybe you want to take us through, first of all, the formation, existence, and those things that have been challenging or successful for your organization over the years.
Thank you very much, SLBC, for having me. Good morning, the Republic of Sierra Leone. The Youth Association of Sierra Leone is a non-governmental organization established in 2015. We have been legally registered by the National Youth Commission, and we've been operational since. We have been engaged in several activities that are promoting Sierra Leone's participation in international relations. Recently, we concluded a workshop at the United Nations NGO Conference, 60th session at Salt Lake City. Last year again, we were opportunity to represent the Republic of Sierra Leone, and we hosted another workshop at the United Nations headquarters in the United Nations NGO Conference. In all of these efforts, our organization has been at the helm of affairs in terms of championing representation of youth in diverse ways, especially when it comes to representation activities within the United Nations and promotion of the SDGs. We've been, of course, engaging young folks within the age bracket of 18 to 30 to tirelessly putting shoulders to the wheel to see how we can implement the SDGs for the betterment of the Republic of Sierra Leone, and also to see how we can amplify Sierra Leone's input in international relations. Over the years, we've seen how diverse impact has been made in several efforts to see how we can restore sustainable development to the Republic of Sierra Leone, peace and tranquility, political tolerance, so on and so forth. So it's time that we have, with the youth at the forefront, bearing some of these responsibilities, shouldering it alongside with the government agencies which are in charge as per statute, and to see how we can make the best out of what we can do in promoting sustainable development goals in Sierra Leone. Not to belabor the point, furthermore, we want to see how we encourage young Sierra Leoneans in the art of diplomacy. We want to see how we can promote the Republic of Sierra Leone in the sphere of international politics and also international representation in making headway as a least developed country, as categorized by World Index, coming up into the platform of sustainable development nations. So we realize that we cannot sit back and see the government take all the responsibilities, in as much as we cannot do all of what it is demanded because we're limited of resources, and there's been so many challenges both politically, socially and economically. We are of course confirmed in terms of what we're targeting in terms of accomplishing in the Republic of Sierra Leone as well as at the United Nations. The goal of promoting the United Nations and becoming more sustainable and more effective for all member states is one of the core foundations which this organization has been established over the years.
All right, now saying how long you've been established, what are some of the, realizations that you have?
Well, first off, we realize that in as much as young people want to be part of the global platforms and we want to share common knowledge with everyone from the United Nations member states, we also realize that it has been very, very controversial for certain institutions in governance and certain government functionaries to put in the requisite support that is very demanding of participation for the Republic of Sierra Leone's youth populace at such platforms. We want to see how this can be revisited and adjusted because, for instance, in member states of the United Nations, there's what they call the United Nations Youth Delegate Program. This is an initiative which is launched by the United Nations wherein youth of member states can join in the delegations of the respective countries, as in the permanent missions, to represent the country at the United Nations headquarters to serve during a period of time in advocating for youth, in putting across the issues of youth, and see how we can bring up tangible solutions.
So how many youths will you say?
Well, we're looking at, for starters, we're going to start off with 10 at the moment.
I mean at the United Nations level, in terms of representation, in terms of empowerment, that you said holding workshops and seminars for them?
Yes, we had the last workshop which we had a total number of 200 guests which were present at our workshop, which comprises of member states representations.
At the United Nations?
Yes, sir.
From Sierra Leone?
Well, from Sierra Leone and other member states. For Sierra Leone, we only had 5 representatives, and one of which is Mr. Eric Masale, who was the representative from the NGO desk at the Ministry of Economic Development, and we want to commend his effort. We want to thank him and the ministry for making his representation known on behalf of the Government of Sierra Leone at this particular platform. So, with regards to Sierra Leone's youth representation, it was very difficult for some of our delegates and representation members to be present because, first off, we had challenges with visa processing. Unfortunately, we could not have the support of the foreign ministry at the time which we made requisite requests, but we're trying to see how we can put in dialogue some of these concerns across to the Honorable Minister and that of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We want to beckon His Excellency again to see that this is also another concern for youngsters like us who are actually really concerned about our work and what we intend to do at international levels, that in as much as there are certain provisions which he has made through certain agreements with member states of the United Nations in facilitations of visas for both diplomatic and service passport, we want to see how he can also make certain discussions around the possible facilitations of visa issuance for carriers of ordinary passports with ordinary citizens, because these are all challenges which we faced in terms of getting across to the United States and other nations where we make necessary representation.
Okay, Mr. Kallon, I see you have a handful of responsibilities, but now let's look at what you really do as youths. We see most of the times when they are represented in these conferences out of the country, when they come back, it's not reflected on the ordinary youth around. People don't try to get back to their compatriots and tell them, share with them what they have. So how do you do that? How best do you do
Well, we realize that has been a concern because for us it's not about we going to high-level meetings and coming back and having discussions on TV stations. We intend to have conferences locally, and we intend to have other workshops and capacity building activities which we're going to be doing around the country. Like we mentioned, our organization is a national representation organization, and that means that we have to go down to the grassroots, if not possibly district levels, to see how we can amplify this information.
What's your membership?
Our membership consists of individuals within the age bracket of 18 to 30
And how many
from
people
across
are we
the...
talking about?
Currently, we're looking at 2,500, which are registered members of the Youth Association of Sierra Leone. So we want to see how we can amplify this through the establishment of chapters in universities, secondary schools. We want to see how we can build the capacity from that level, because when you have youngsters in academic institutions engaged, they can help spread the word across to the communities and see how we can also get the required attention and focus for the youth populace in terms of participation in subsequent events and getting back the feedbacks as to the input that we made at such high level events.
So how long have you been in existence again, please?
We are legally established since 2015.
Okay, that's almost 5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And I am thinking this is the first time I'm hearing about you. So what is wrong? Why don't youth know about you?
Well,
2,500 is a great number for youths of Sierra Leone not to be aware that you're around.
well, first off, we want to say that in terms of our existence, we have been quite operational. We've been doing our little best with the resources available at our disposal, because in as much as we want to expand on our network, we have to face realities. And one of the sad realities in Sierra Leone is that there's this unhealthy competition amongst us, first off, as youth coming up in making the necessary change for this country. Secondly, we have the negative aspect of certain individuals in certain institutions of power, both government and non-government, who do not see some of our potentials as something that is quite tangible for the impact and the drastic changes that they will make to the Republic of Sierra Leone. Rather, unfortunate, these have been some of the challenges that we've been faced with. Politically, some of the government institutions and the officials in questions have not been quite supportive in terms of disbursement of resources as per required to certain institutions such as us. But nonetheless, we are of course very, very grateful to our
I don't think it's
sponsors.
because some of those things that government want to concentrate on, maybe those technical skills.
Well, we're looking at technical skills. It's a broad topic. In as much as we want to look at technical skills as a skill to
Because
capacity.
if you look at the society today,
Yes.
Junisa, you'll agree with us that technical manpower is what Sierra Leone, like many other African countries, need.
Yes.
We don't need that kind of state where people can continue talking, and in the process, at the end, they become idle at the end of the day,
Yes.
and it become a burden on the state. So why not ask the government for something that will technically empower the young people instead of empowering them to gain some theoretical knowledge or whatever conference they will attend, and at the end they'll come back and start asking to protest against the very state.
Well, we want to say first off, as a youth association, we strongly stand against some of these unhealthy behaviors of certain youth, which has been on the rampant even as to recent occurrences. We want to clearly state that, of course, in as much as we've been in existence over the past 4 years or so, we have tirelessly made efforts in making contributions towards sustainable development and in the regards of technical workshops and activities which are, of course, empowering towards giving sustainable empowerment in terms of job creation, having requisite in terms of trades and skills. These are things that we have been